What's going on, everybody? Chris here, hanging out with our influencers. And tonight we are continuing our discussion on what it looks like to follow Jesus. Conspiracy theories, the Bible, cancel culture, heaven and hell. Why does it matter that God came to be with us? Starting our Bible study on Mark. What is influencers?
Being with a group of people who like-mindedly want to ask more questions, understand more about the Bible, grow in their faith more with friends and Jesus and each other, and overall just want the best for each other and other people as they work towards growing their faith together.
I would describe it as a group of teens and a couple of adults who meet up and discuss Jesus and other problems in the community.
Working together to try to find answers or discuss big questions they have about faith.
Students in the youth group who felt inclined to lead, or someone saw an aspect in them that would make them a good leader.
If you relate to social media, it's kind of similar. They talk about what they're doing in their everyday life, dive into maybe some of the books or the resources that they're looking at, and they're vulnerable and authentic. Most of the time. Our influencer group, we really just do that and bring it back to faith. So we're talking about God, we're diving into scriptures, we're really studying and rereading scriptures and then having conversation.
Leading discussions about faith-based questions and a lot of new perspectives that none of us have really considered, which is cool because you have to have an open mind in order to learn from this. And because we as influencers have to do that, that means the youth group does too, since the videos are given to the youth group to watch for youth group.
Basically, you guys are training them how to have deeper discussions. We have them, and then they get to see that and go, oh, well, I want to do that.
We're training ourselves as well, because I know at the beginning I was super shaky, but now I'm pretty solid in speaking. Definitely feel more comfortable talking about my faith with people. Before, that didn't happen.
I don't think I've really had anything like this before influencers. I feel like all of my discussions within youth group and my small groups have been super limited. I'm yeah, but everybody knows that. Everybody's been taught the same thing, and nobody's saying anything different, digging deeper. It was just all very surface based, and it got boring.
And it really spurred out of something we did last July, I think, where we were trying to come up with a promo video for why small groups matter. And in doing that, we just had a really great discussion on Zoom. And I was like, wait a second, this is good. And then we tried it, right? We tried last August. We were like, let's see what happens. And here we are a year later. And it's been really fun to watch you guys develop in your ability to speak and your confidence in what you're speaking on, and also your willingness to ask questions you're actually thinking. I think at first we were a little shy to be well, I'm thinking this, but you're not supposed to ask that. Now you guys are hey, what about this? And I'm oh, all right, so that's a big question. And it's really awesome because it's what we hope. This is what we want. We want faith to matter in the really big stuff too, and in actual life, and not just random stuff. Here's your little daily Bible verse, so yay, good job. Let's actually dig in. Let's ask the big questions. And I think we've been able to do that really well because you guys have really owned this. Because when I'm talking to people about it, I'm well, it's having a small group of juniors and seniors who are really committed to faith, who are willing to step up as leaders. And we just have a great discussion together. And then we turn that into a video for everybody else. And the hope is that leads them in a better discussion themselves, which we've seen work.
It offers a place where you can have opinions and not be judged for it.
And they asked great questions that I haven't usually heard asked in church. Because in all honesty, some conversations are shallow in church. You get the word, you get a little bit of explanation, but also a scripture, whenever you dive into it, there can be several layers that can go to several messages and several questions that pop up that sometimes there's not a safe space or a long enough conversation where you are able to ask those questions and get some of those answers.
How, for you personally, has your faith grown because you're a part of this?
feel like it's made me more comfortable in my skin and helps me be more comfortable talking to other people. It kind of it challenges my faith, and I do enjoy the open discussions because I feel like everyone has their own opinion, and I like to hear the opinion even if I don't always agree with it.
It's super nice having people that you know are there with you. For me, especially like Eli, it's been awesome getting to do all this with him and having grown up in the youth program with him all these years. I mean, and everybody else that's an influencer too. It's just you really know that they're there for the same reason you are, and that everybody wants to grow together.
It's helped me grow in my faith because I will read a verse and get one thing out of it and then come discuss it in this group, and they will get different things out of what they read or come up with questions that I would never have thought of coming up by myself. And the questions I do have, we get to discuss, and it helps me get a different perspective and just grow my faith. And it also is helpful because it's with high schoolers, so I can relate to them. And when they talk about their situations, I can understand where they're coming from.
It's given me a sense of accountability, like people are counting on me to do my reading every week. And also it's like a different sense of responsibility. I'm not just reading because I have to read. I'm looking for the questions to ask, which is helping me understand it more. And it's gotten easier to find the questions because at first you look at it and you're like, it's right there. That's what it says, no questions asked. But now I'm like, well.
Before influencers, it was kind of around the time where like I was having serious doubts because I need to like analyze my beliefs more, like why I actually believe them, because like all of my beliefs were just like what I've been taught, and so none of them were personal. I was like, I don't know why I'm believing any of this. It doesn't feel personal, and like some of it didn't feel right to me either. So like influencers like gave me a place to see what other people were thinking, because I think everybody definitely has different beliefs in one another in this group, and so it gave me like more of a free space to like listen to other people and like figure out what like resonated with me the most. Yeah, so I had to like learn how to be consistently open to other people, because I think that's something that I've struggled with, actually listening to other people and like recognize that I'm not right. Like nobody is gonna be completely right because nobody completely agrees on anything. So that's the tricky part that I've had to like keep on reminding myself, and that's helped me a lot in like relationships outside of influencers too. And like being able to like learn from other people and not just think that I have something to offer all the time, but like other people do too.
What's been fun for me as a youth pastor, often I am trying to coordinate things for middle schoolers and high schoolers, and finding like, well, if I go up here, I lose the middle schoolers, and if I go down here, I lose the high schoolers. And like, I don't know, but it's been really fun to have this place with just the all in high schoolers. What do you wish you had maybe at the beginning or even now that you don't, that would help you do this even better?
I feel like you guys give us the tools we need for the most part. Like you ask questions and it kind of like makes us think differently. And with you and my dad both on the group, you guys both really know quite a bit about history and stuff regarding the Bible, so I feel like it helps us give us some background, because if we didn't know some of that stuff, I don't think we would have understood some things as deeply. Whenever I'm in this group, I'm like, wow, I don't really think I need anything. But in other groups I've been in, I've sometimes just been, I could immediately think of some things that I wish that were different.
I think changing it to where we get to ask the questions was helpful. I think that led to more conversations where we were confused about, because before I think some questions we kind of already knew, or they weren't like exactly as deep as we wanted to go. And so I think it was very nice to like ask our own questions, because that was helpful. I also like how many students are involved and only like 2 adults. It's very helpful to have you and Jonathan, obviously, like a big help, but it's also really nice to have people my age.
I like just being able to like come in, ask our own questions. I liked having to be able to just come in, improvise kind of.
In my head, I've always had to like bring something to the table and then get response from it, right? But it's been like such a fun shift for me to literally prepare like you guys are preparing, and then we talk about it. Kind of think that's how this should always work, that we're all learning and growing and listening to God, and then we come in and say, hey, here's what I heard, or here's what questions I have, and then we talk about it. And since we've made that shift, It has been so much better.
One thing that I really appreciated about influencers was that you guys are a lot more open to different opinions. Like, I feel like at other youth groups I've been to, I could ask questions, but a lot of the time all the leaders would have the same answer, and it kind of felt like their way was completely right and I wasn't allowed to think differently. And like it felt like weird and like boxed in. And so I appreciate that like you guys leave room for people to think differently, but also like encourage growth. I like that a lot.
If we were recruiting new influencers, who makes a good influencer?
First of all, they don't have to be too deep into their faith. If as long as they're just willing to learn, have their opinion challenged, and like just learn more about Jesus in general.
I would just start out with like, how willing are they to commit? Think of like how eager they are to dig into the Bible, and especially how much they think they know. Because if they think they know everything, then maybe they don't need to be the influencer, they need to watch the influencers. Because everyone who is here knows they don't know everything.
I'd say the person had to be really open-minded, I think, because you can't come into this closed-minded, otherwise you're not going to leave with anything. And I think if you come closed-minded, you're going to think you're completely correct. Somebody who like actually wants to learn and dive deeper.
In general, anyone can be an influencer. All you need is the desire to grow. Because I know before influencers, I was very self-conscious. I wasn't confident in my faith. I wasn't really engaged in my faith. Like, I would attend church and I would attend youth group, but I wasn't really putting myself out there to get anything because I didn't know there was anything to get, to be honest. Don't necessarily think you need to be a leader in order to join, because I definitely wasn't, and I've grown to be a leader.
For me, identifying influencers, what I looked for is like we had a conversation of depth about faith in some way, shape, or form. Not that you had it figured out, but that you were thinking about it, or you're wrestling with it, or you had big questions. All of those things were indicators of like, okay, they're ready for like next level stuff. That with the willingness be in, kind of it. Because like we're all learning how to follow Jesus together, but being willing to want to do that more and more. Because like a disciple is someone who follows a rabbi, and our rabbi is Jesus, and we're trying to learn how to do that better and better and better. We just dig in, figure it out, ask questions. That's what they did a lot with their rabbis, is ask questions. So if you notice, as we're reading Mark, Jesus says something, later on they're like, what was that? I don't know what that was. It's like half of what they say. But that's literally what disciples are supposed to do. And so a lot of times church now has become, here's the answer, don't question the answer, this is the answer, see you next week, here's the next answer. In no way when you read scriptures is that how this works. So the fact that we are wrestling with it, asking big questions, is exactly how this is supposed to work.
I hope that someone can look and hear the questions we ask, hear the conversations, and be inspired to have conversations in their own life. Since we are digital right now, I hope that somebody who is connected to the village or who just sees us online is like, wow, there's a little bit of diversity there. There's people who are asking questions who look like me, or, you know, or questions that I've never heard that I've had. And I'm very, very excited to be a part, because I love learning about God, and I love people, and I love sometimes having some uncomfortable conversations where it's like, okay, you got to dig a little bit deeper. We can't just stay at the surface. And I think that's what influencers is all about.